Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Feldman. This week, Paul Downs tells Jay Goltz and Jackie Russo about the latest developments in his year-long campaign to stop relying so heavily on Google AdWords. At a specially arranged two-day marketing event, Paul got to sit down with a series of architects and designers who had already been vetted and who he hopes will become repeat customers. So far, Paul says, the results look promising. Plus, we also discuss, do you write your website copy to please Google or to please people? Is there any way around the skyrocketing property insurance rates? Why has Jay decided he no longer needs a chief financial officer? How big a disadvantage to owners are the new laws forbidding them from asking job candidates about their salary histories? And would you reject a candidate simply for trying to negotiate a starting salary? I know someone who would. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations, brought to you by our principal sponsor, The Great Game of Business, will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which Inc. magazine named the best newsletter for business owners and which you can subscribe to for free at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Paul Downs, CEO of Paul Downs Cabinet Makers, which is based outside of Philadelphia and makes custom conference tables. Jay Goltz, CEO of the Goltz Group, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, artist frame service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. And Jackie Russo, CEO of Brand Russo, a marketing agency based in Lafayette, Louisiana. The episode is titled, We Need to Go Back to Marketing for Humans. Welcome, Paul, Jay, and Jackie. It's great to have you here. Paul, I believe the last time you joined us, you told us you were preparing for a big event organized by the marketing firm you hired, where you would be sitting down with a bunch of potential customers. Do I have that right? And did that happen?
You are correct, and it did happen, yes.
How did it go?
I would say it went really, really well. This was an event that put us in direct contact with a target audience that is very difficult to reach by other means.
Well, why don't you give us a quick update? This is part of your marketing campaign where you are trying to reach a different audience.
We're trying to get beyond Google searches driving our business and make inroads into a different way of selling our product that we have not had a ton of success with, and that's through high-end architects specifying custom tables for their clients. And so we had 27 half-hour meetings over 2 days, and I have been working on 4 solid projects.
It sounds like speed dating. Is that kind of the idea?
It is like speed dating, and it was actually a really well-managed event down in San Antonio in a fancy resort, and they delivered what they promised, which was a chance for us to meet, explain what we do, and have an actual personal connection with a target audience, which is pretty well insulated from outsiders by any other means.
How did you get them to come?
I didn't get them to come. Event organizers get the architects to show up, and we asked most of the ones who we talked to, like, do you do this often? And most of them had either been multiple years or their firm had been multiple years, and this was their first year attending. So the firms see value in this kind of relationship with a vendor where they get a chance to see what someone does without the usual email and blah, 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 blah.
So wait, first of all, it's not like speed dating at all in that you want to get everybody. Speed dating, you're looking for one person. So this is correct me if I'm wrong, is this not like basically a virtual trade show where they don't have to get on a plane and go to a trade show? They get to talk to vendors and...
It's not virtual. You do have to get on a plane and go talk to people. The difference between having a meeting with someone across a table and over Zoom is, to my mind, is just incredibly different, which makes sense. That's what our product is all about, which is getting people in the same room. We had requested something like 18 meetings, and then we found that quite a few of the people were requesting to meet with us because we do have a unique product that they were interested in. So we've already got 4 active projects out of this with a value probably in the range of $500,000, which to me is an enormous success. And we haven't even started our follow-ups so much.
Wow.
So was it like a one-person trade show?
No, there was maybe somewhere between a dozen and 20 different vendors.
Okay.
And I think there was something on the order of 60 architects and interior designers.
Did they come knowing what you do and with a certain amount of interest to begin, or were you starting from scratch with them?
So one of the things that was also good about this is that you have a lot of information going both directions. So we filled out a description of who we are and what we do that was available for all the attendees to take a look at. And then we had detailed information of every single person, and we could make a choice out of everybody who was attending who we prioritized as wanting to meet. And so I prepared with my marketing manager. We sat down and went through like the resume, the LinkedIn, the website for every single person and prepared a briefing document, had their picture on it, had their LinkedIn, had what they do, had where their office was, projects they were working on, which we were provided with, and then also projects that were similar that we had worked on, so that we had a pretty tailored response to each person. And I feel that made the meetings much more productive. Like we really prepared for it.
Paul, was this your event?
It's put on by an English company called Bond Organization, and they do a variety of different shows that are of this type where they put vendors and buyers together. They're really focused on the architecture and interior design industries, and they have managed to get pretty much the top firms in the world onto their train. And so it was a great chance for us to go and meet some of the people who we really are dying to do business with, but it's hard to break your way through, just by going and banging on the door and sending an email and making a phone call. You just don't get the access that we get on this show.
So I'm a little confused. Why wouldn't NeoCon's in Chicago? It's the big show. Why wouldn't they just go to NeoCon? What's the difference? This is a very small thing. Is it a niche NeoCon that there's a difference between the vendors that were here versus going to NeoCon, which is the big design show in Chicago once a year?
Well, have you been to NeoCon, Jay?
Yeah, years ago. I haven't gone lately.
I mean, it's just a gigantic scrum. And I think that it's not actually conducive to conversations in the way that this was. And also, I would never exhibit at NeoCon. It just doesn't make sense for me. But this venue gets me to the people, the subset of people who might possibly go to NeoCon that I'm actually interested in. So instead of having to wade through 25,000 people, I got 24, 27 who I really want to meet.
No, I totally get your side. I'm trying to understand, what was the sales pitch to these companies to come to this very mini trade show? What was the sales pitch to them?
I don't know. Probably you're going to meet some vendors who are going to be useful to you, and it's not NeoCon.
Of the people that were there, were you all custom made? There must be a common denominator to everybody that was there.
The common denominator, that's a good question. There wasn't an apparent common denominator. We weren't all furniture makers. And I had first been approached by this outfit in 2018 and was about to actually do the show in 2020 when COVID screwed that all up. So it just took a while to get me around to it. I'm not sure how Bond finds the people that they try to talk into doing this, but that's clearly a curated bunch of vendors, because otherwise the architects would be like, I don't want to meet these clowns. If it was...
No, it would have turned into another NeoCon then is my question. So were they mostly custom?
No, there was a couple that were sort of custom. At this end of the architectural practice, a lot of stuff is just custom, like your glass, your building envelopes. But there was a couple of guys who did I think there was one that was selling the air dry, hand dry things you have in the washroom.
Right.
Everybody needs a pile of those. So that made sense for them, and they had a pretty big showing there. And I think different people just made a decision that, this is how I want to do it. The total cost to me was about, at the end of the day, about $35,000, $22,000 for the show, and then the rest for all the other stuff we're doing around it.
Which is part of the overall marketing campaign that you're spending a lot more on.
Well, I'm kind of done with the spending parts of that campaign, in that we have built a new website, developed content for it, completed all of the filming and photography and market research that the marketing guys did. Like, that's all done. But those two things, which were between them about $100,000, that's all completed. So next year I don't have to do that.
And the new website is aimed at the same audience, designers and architects, right?
Is aimed at this designers and architects audience.
Have you released that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's been up. And we're starting to even get some organic traffic through it, which I'm surprised at, because we're not particularly pitching it to Google as we're not keyword stuffing or doing any of that stuff. This is really meant to be read by human beings for their own pleasure, as opposed to just written for robots.
Jackie, you're in the marketing business. Have you ever done anything like the event Paul's talking about?
I have. I'm just stuck on Written for Robots. That's going to be, I think, the title of my next book, because it just feels like that's what everybody's doing right now. I'm going to use the AI. I'm going to try to stack the deck. And it's painful. We need to go back to marketing for humans. I love this for you, Paul, and for everybody else that participated, because this is what trade shows used to be. It used to be about quality over quantity, making real connections with actual decision makers. This is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite satisfied so far. As I said, we met with 27 people. We sent them an email afterwards saying, hey, thanks. You mentioned this project, so we're here to help. And a little time went by, but now we've got 4 active ones where people came back and said, okay, here's the thing, here's the drawing, here's the project. And one of them we should close within, I would say, mid-January at the latest.
Would you say these were mostly niche businesses? I mean, there was no Steelcase there. There was no, the big company, Herman Miller. It was all niche-y, smaller businesses, would you say?
Yeah, it was niche-y, a good way to put it. But I think that a lot of what the architects were looking for was, in my case anyway, a way to get a product that didn't involve working through 15 layers of a Steelcase bureaucracy and the dealers and all that stuff.
Which I totally get, because even when I've gone to the show, I want to buy some chairs. It's just not an easy thing. They send you to a dealer, and then maybe the dealer couldn't care less about a company my size. So I'm going to guess that it wasn't just niche-y, but they're trying to curate this that goes direct from the seller to the buyer versus what you just said. A lot of that industry is now going through dealers, which just makes it all much more difficult.
Yeah, everybody hates dealers. They suck.
Or that was Paul that said that, yeah.
And don't ask me why. Yeah, no, but the architects are not buying for themselves. They're specifying for their clients. But
right.
They do have to often go through furniture dealers, and that can be an ordeal for everybody involved, because this is a controversial thing. Let's just say that in general, the industry is not focused on service and understanding the needs of the client. What they are focused on is meeting their quota of what's in the catalog and just trying to push that.
Paul, can you describe what those half-hour conversations were like? Did you just start with a pitch? How did that go?
Well, I told them my story because it's a great story, which I believe we've told it here, but the very quick version is I was just a little nobody, made one conference table, and then Google decided that one on my website was going to be the top search result for boardroom tables back in 2003, lightning strike. And ever since then, we've done that business, and now we work at the very, very highest levels. And but we don't interact with the selling path that these architects and interior designers are on, so they didn't know that we existed. And then you walk in, you say, oh yeah, we just did this project, we did that project, we work for these guys, we did this stuff. And often it was projects that these firms had been involved with. They just didn't know we existed. So that's a very easy story to tell.
Paul, I think one of your clear goals with this was to develop customers who will be repeat customers. Is that something that came up, and do you have a sense that you're headed in that direction?
Yeah, again, when people heard the story, they're like, oh yeah, you can do what we need to do. We just didn't know you exist. So that to me is the start of a good relationship. And now we're starting working on actual projects. And the nature of the market is that the designers are involved with a project a couple of years before the furniture needs to show up. So this is very long term. But I'm presuming that if our initial response looks credible, then we'll continue to get more opportunities. So far, it looks like that's happening.
And that's how marketing should be. It should be direct and personal. It should be targeted and specific. And when we focus on quality over quantity, we're going to win every time.
And how do you make sure that happens for your clients, Jackie?
Well, I think it's finding opportunities like that. I mean, that's always important. And then creating those opportunities when they don't. I was on a call this morning with a prospective client, and I said, so tell me about your target audience. And he said, oh, well, we work with everybody from A to Z. I mean, it's startups and it's billion-dollar companies. And I was like, okay, we can't work together. Because that you can't be successful thinking like that. Those two things don't match. The language is different. The needs are different. The problems are different.
Buyer's different.
Right.
One's using their own money, and the other one is some corporate employee who just doesn't want to get in trouble.
100%.
Paul, you talked about how your second website is aimed specifically at a niche audience, and you're not stuffing it with keywords. You're not trying to reach everybody. But you have your main website, which still is SEO driven and still is trying to find the customers you've always been looking for. Have you learned anything through this process that's going to change the way you approach your original website?
The more I look at my original website, the more I hate it because of the way we structured it in order to be SEO strong. And you never know exactly whether the decisions you make to make Google robots happy are detrimental to how human beings experience the site, but my suspicion is they are. Because what we did was basically took a page that had three, let's say you had three sub-points about tables, like how big should it be? How much should it cost? And you broke that out into three separate pages with backlinks into an initial page. And it all just made the whole thing more complicated to navigate and, to my mind, not as pleasurable to interact with. On the other hand, the traffic keeps going up. So, what do you do? I don't have an answer for that. I don't like what Google is asking us to do, but I can't piss them off. That would be a bad move.
All right. I want to give Paul and Jackie a chance to pick apart some of Jay's decisions. Let's start with insurance. Jay, we talked recently, and I think you had a big insurance surprise.
It's mostly property insurance. It's not workman's comp. It's not car insurance. It's mostly property insurance. We just pulled up what I was paying for property insurance in 2011. And if you look at what I'm paying today, if you factor in inflation, it used to be 3, so I put it in 4 to compensate for some of the higher years. My insurance has literally doubled. In my building where I have a factory warehouse is most of the problem. It's 85,000 feet. It's sprinklered, but it was built in 1903. So the insurance company is not counting it as sprinkler because the pipes are too small and the blah, blah, blah. And you say, oh, well, if the insurance is going up $100,000, it's going $100,000 a year.
From this year to next year?
Yeah. So you'd say, oh, well, you ought to just fix the sprinkler. Yeah, that's going to be about $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. They would have to completely take all the pipes down, bring a whole new pump in, and it gets down to the cost benefit analysis of the insurance guys tell me this stuff goes back and forth that the prices could drop dramatically next year. So I don't know that it's worth spending the $600-700, but it is up a lot. And it's not just me. I think anyone that owns a building, the insurance is going up a lot. In the last 3 years, between real estate taxes and insurance, my occupancy costs have gone up pretty dramatically.
What would a fire cost you?
$10 million, which is why, trust me, I thought about, well, maybe I should just self-insure. And I realized that if the place burned down, which is obviously a long shot, we haven't had a big fire since 1871.
You're talking about Chicago, not your business.
Chicago. If my building burned down to the ground, okay, the land's still there, so that's worth something. But if I had to replace all the inventory and the building, I'd have a check, but I'd be out of business. So I realized I'm going to have to pay the piper and just pay for the insurance because self-insuring is not really an option. So you literally have to just build it into your business model and say, okay, insurance is going to cost more.
Jay, is your sprinkler issue just a niggling insurance company problem, or is it a safety issue? Is it something that you should?
Well, first of all, there's not a safety problem because it's not a housing development. If there was a fire in there, people would run out of the building. And I do believe the sprinkler would work. The problem is the insurance company, it's not up to their standards. But one of the problems I have is I'm in the framing business, so I've got lots of wood there on racks, so that freaks them out. And the insurance company, says the pump isn't up to standard. Now, I just put a new pump in. I don't know. That was a 6-figure expense. But yeah, the pipes they're literally 120 years old. They're too small, and they want me to put a whole new sprinkler system in. And if it was $200,000, okay, great, do it, because you'll make it back in insurance premiums. But it's going to be far more, and I have to decide, is it worth the money to go ahead and the insurance guy says, it's a competitive market sometimes. The insurance just goes back and forth. They take some bad losses and all the insurance companies raise prices. Then all of a sudden they say, oh, wait, we can get some more business if we lower our prices. And that's the way the commercial insurance business goes. It swings back and forth. So maybe next year it'll only cost me $40,000 more. So spending that kind of money to put a brand new sprinkler system in is not necessarily a good investment.
So I'd like to take your sprinkler wood and compare that to my cinder block building that is only 50 years old, downtown Lafayette. We have no wood because the walls that we've built are all done with metal studs and sheetrock and literally cinder block. The exterior of the building, the entire way around is cinder block. So, I guess there's wood in the kitchen cabinets, but we don't have a stove. We have computers and people and some printers. We're not talking anything that feels flammable. And in 21, our insurance doubled.
Wait, how big is the building?
8,000 square feet.
Okay, so it's literally 10% of what the size
yeah,
went.
No, it's
so what did the insurance go from 10,000 to 20?
And then it doubled again, and it doubled again. And here's the crazy thing. We've owned the building since 2005. We've had no claims ever. We did have a little flooding problem. And so water came in under and flooded into the conference room. Didn't make a claim, fixed it myself. Same insurance company, all of the 17, 18 years. And just all of a sudden, double. So we switched companies and we were able to at least get it back to our 2022 rates. But that's crazy.
So how much is the insurance now?
Well, I was able to get it back down to, we're sitting right at 17 now.
Which is funny because think about it. Percentage-wise, it's exactly what mine is. Your building's 10% the size of mine. And my insurance in that building is about $190,000. So it's literally, it's the exact same dollar per square foot, except to your point, you don't have racks of wood there.
Correct.
You have other issues. Jackie, you're in Louisiana. Is this a climate issue?
It could be, sure. But, we don't have hurricanes here. I'm 22 miles from the Gulf. I'm not saying hurricanes don't come to Louisiana. Knock wood. But I'm saying in the 18 years we've owned the building, there have been 3 named storms that have, quote unquote, hit Lafayette, but no damage to the area in which I'm in at all.
Let me tell you another extremely interesting part of the story. My broker, who I've been with for 45 years, he's 2 years older than me. He sold the company to the big conglomerate insurance company, and now they're going public, right? I called him. I said, I really don't love this way this whole thing's been going. And he apologized and he says, I've got some internal problems here. And he literally said to me, Jay, do what you have to do to take care of your family, which is basically saying, yeah, we're screwing you over because my company's going public. So once again, your reliable old vendor sells out to the big conglomerate and the customer pays the price for it. So I'm changing brokers after 45 years.
Well, and good luck with that, because what I found when I started to shop around is that the brokers have this gentleman's agreement, and you can't get another company to quote it because they, quote unquote, own you.
For sure. Whatever the word is, they don't want to quote the same building to 2 different brokers. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. Maybe. Well, we'll see. I'm going to start doing it. I brought up Marsh & McLennan. He goes, oh, that's the biggest company in the industry. But they're not going. They're already public. Maybe they're better. But like I said, I was rather taken aback. He basically, like I said, he said to me twice, Jay, do whatever you need to do. He's throwing up the white flag because he knows I'm getting screwed around and he's not on commission anymore, he told me.
Paul, you have a big factory and a lot of wood. Have your insurance rates gone up?
Not all that much. I was just looking. Looks like we're going to spend on all of the insurance. This would be life insurance, liability, workman's comp, and business catastrophe. We spent $36,000 last year, probably spent $38,000 this year.
Wait, do you own the building?
No.
Right, that's the difference. You don't own the building. It's a totally different animal.
Yeah.
It's the property insurance of the money I'm spending. Most of it's going to the building insurance.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get that somehow.
They're going to pass it through to you. Yeah.
But my idiot landlord just didn't bother to do that for the last 20 years. So they're finally figuring that out. And so they're catching up, but they didn't realize that they're in arrears going back to 2003. So when we did our lease renewal, they were talking about causes of default. And I just put in a sentence and said, any past due common area charges are not a cause for default. They didn't notice that I added that to the draft. They just signed it and executed it.
How old is your landlord?
The old one was my age, and his son has taken over, and he's in his 20s. So
I was going to say the problem frequently is the landlord dies or sells it, and the next thing you know, again, the renter pays for it.
We added a bunch of space, too, so there was a new lease and blah, 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 blah. But these guys don't read what comes back from their tenants before they execute it, so that's their problem.
So the moral of the story is occupancy costs are going up between high interest rates and insurance. Many people's occupancy costs are going up, and somehow you got to cover that in your pricing because you got to pay for it.
Well, I think it's worth knowing what percentage of your revenues your insurance costs are, too. So last year it was 0.77% for me. And this year so far it's about 1%. It's not the biggest line item on my list by a long shot.
What is your rent as a percentage of your business? I'm going to guess 5%.
Something on that range. Yeah, let me see. Last year, although we signed a new lease, so it's higher this year. Last year is 4.21%. This year, 5.27%.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jay, you had another interesting situation recently. We had spent a good bit of time, I don't know, maybe a year or more ago, talking about your attempts to hire a chief financial officer. I think you've recently come to the conclusion that you don't actually need a chief financial officer. Can you explain that?
I fumbled the ball very badly on that one. I had someone who was here for over 20 years, did a good job with keeping all the financials and everything going well. He retired and went out looking for a replacement. And the first thing I should have done is I should have not looked for a CFO. I should have called it a controller. And we hired someone.
What's the difference?
The CFO, first of all, I'm not a public company. I'm not buying and selling companies. They're not going to oversee. I didn't need him to oversee HR. I don't need him to oversee the insurance. It's just lesser of a job. And besides which, I fully take responsibility. I didn't pay enough attention. I left it up to my HR person and him, and I interviewed the person, and she's gone now. She did not have the background or the experience to do this job. And I said to her at one point, did you know what you were getting into when you took this job? More than any hesitation, she said, in no way, shape, or form. So I did a really bad job. And if anyone gets anything out of this, I always tell everybody, correct me if I'd be interested in your opinions. I believe of all the jobs, all the 21 hats that we wear, hiring and firing got to be the number 1 and 2 ones. Because if you got the wrong people, I don't care what your strategy is. I don't care what your advertising is. I don't care what your anything is. It was a bad fit. She didn't have the right background for it. And now I'm going back to reinventing the wheel now of what do I really need? Do I really need a full-time controller? And then my accountant goes, oh, maybe you should get a fractional CFO. I did the math on that. And for what they charge per hour, if they even work just one day a week, it's going to cost me the same as a full-time employee. So that doesn't make any sense. So we're okay at the moment. Everything's running fine. I got 3 solid people in accounting, very solid, working together. So I'm reassessing what I need in that department, and it's tricky. So I got a recruiter this time. I'm using the recruiter that works at the accounting firm, and I don't have the end of the story yet. I'm still figuring it out.
One of the reasons I'm intrigued is that I had just kind of assumed that a business of your size did need to have a CFO. And then, of course, you've always had one. Jackie, Paul, do you guys have CFOs?
No.
Can't if they're their size. The math doesn't work.
It doesn't make any sense
At all.
What are they going to do?
What do you have?
Me.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm the eye of Sauron when I'm looking at my finances. I'm just zeroing in and I'm pretty clear on what we're spending money on. I don't know, Jackie, how big is your company?
We're about 28 people. We'll do close to 3 this year.
Okay. So you're a little smaller than me, but
Right.
not much.
We're in a bit of a flux. This is our 3rd wave. And so we had somebody in-house who was more of a controller because I was new, and we handled, at that time, we were primarily media buying. So we handled $5 million of other people's money. And that made me very uncomfortable. So somebody needs to be in charge of that. And then as we transitioned from being a media buying agency to being a strategic brand planning and implementation agency, our profit margin went way up. We went from 15% margin to a 90% margin, and our overall sales went way down. And so it was less money to deal with. And so most of the money flowing through here was ours. So that was easier to keep track of. So our controller moved on to go somewhere else, and we used a combination of in-house and outsourced accounting firm who kind of served as a double blind check and CPA taxes. And now we've evolved again to, it's a lot of software that I think is pretty well connected together. And I mean, I'm 2 weeks into this transition, so it's a little new, but still have an outside resource to make sure that I'm not doing anything that's going to throw me into jail.
I actually have an accounting degree, but the fact is I never went into it because I like the creative side of things. So I'm the first to admit I haven't paid enough attention to it. I should have. I am now. And I'll tell you a problem. I don't have a problem with most of the government regulations going on. It's all fine, except for one piece. This new law, I don't think it's in every state, but in Illinois it is. You can no longer ask someone what they're making at their last job. And it is really, really inhibiting. It's like, at least if you know somebody was paying them X dollars, they probably were worth it. But in a job like this, you don't know whether the person was making $90,000 at their last job or $180,000, and it's extremely frustrating. And I understand why they did it so there's more pay parity. That women in particular aren't paid enough, so they figured, okay, well, at least if they're going to a new job, you won't be able to use their lower income and continue that on. Okay, I got it. Was all good intentions and probably has helped that, but it has put the business owner. It's really makes it more difficult.
You don't have any way to evaluate what they might have been getting paid. So you just make up a number in your head. I mean, you know what you want to offer for the job, but you don't know what.
Right. At least if you know something.
Aren't there other ways to determine that, Jay?
Like what? See what kind of car they're driving? I mean, no.
No. What kind of experience they have, what they've been doing.
I got to tell you, you could have a $90,000 person and a $160,000 person, and their stories could be exactly the same. Oh, I oversee all the accounting. But at least if somebody was making $160,000 a year for 5 years, you have to believe they probably were worth it or the company wouldn't have been paying it. Whereas if they were working 90...
Companies do make mistakes sometimes.
For sure. But at least it's one more bit of information. I'll tell you the breakthrough I had, though, lately. This is really interesting. We're hiring an assistant HR person. Now we're doing the other thing. We're playing by all the rules. We put the range in the ad now. Fair enough. They say that your response gets much better. So we put right in the ad, whatever it was, 45 to 55. It's right there out in the open. Okay. We interview her. We like her. She says, I don't have a lot of experience. Fair enough. We offer her the job. We give her a little more than halfway up, like whatever, 51. And she comes back and she says, gee, can I get 3 weeks vacation? No, we're not. We give 2 weeks to begin with. And then she comes back again and says, can I get $2,000 more? Now we're starting to get uncomfortable. Like, you know what? Maybe she wants to make more money. She did answer this ad. She knows she has no experience. So since the ad said 45 to 55, she certainly shouldn't have expected the higher of the range. But this is where it gets interesting. We thought long and hard about it. And rather than rescind the offer, we sent her an email that said, I have to tell you, I'm starting to get uncomfortable. This might not be the right fit. We told you what the range was. We made you a good faith offer after giving it a lot of analysis. We think this is really a good offer. And she comes back and she admits, and I give her credit for this. She goes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you were offended. I took my advice from my mentor and somebody else that works. This is Jay. Everybody's being told every day between YouTube and TikTok and everyone, always negotiate your salary. That isn't good advice because there's some cases where that's not going to come off well. So the answer is, from now on, we're going to make you an offer, and we just want you to know It's non-negotiable. If that doesn't work for you, just don't take the job. And that way, they don't have the pressure of thinking they left money on the table, and we don't have to go through this.
Can we hear from Jackie on this? Has it been a problem for you?
Well, it hasn't been a problem for me. I don't hire as often as I think y'all do. So we have a set team that we've kind of been set for a while. We also have an internship program. So we basically test drive each other for 3 months through the internship program. And the best of that bunch makes it to a part-time paid position. And then when they graduate, a full-time position. So it's kind of a stair step of we're all making sure we're on the same page the whole way through, which really helps. We also did a round of raises over the past year. And so our payroll increased by almost 100%. And we added in that no work on Fridays thing that Jay loves so much. So we're kind of sitting pretty with my inbox is probably hit with 5 times more resumes now of people looking for jobs that aren't even open. And that's kind of changing the negotiating seat for me for when we hire next.
So that's my question, though. Is there negotiation, or do you say, okay, you give them the number, they go, great, I'll start Monday?
That's exactly how it goes. Here's the number. Thank you very much.
I don't want to negotiate starting salaries. I give them a good faith offer that I think is worth it. We don't try to get the cheapest. We think of their experience, and we put the range in the ad, so we're playing fair. It's all right there and transparent. So Paul, tell us your view on that.
Well, I don't think you can really knock someone for trying to negotiate if it's a moment when negotiation is not an unusual thing. I mean, when you're working out a salary, why wouldn't you ask for something more? I think that an employee who has the guts to ask for something, I would be like, okay, you get some points for trying.
Well, do I want them taking the job knowing that they're not making what they want to make?
That's not necessarily what it works out to. Now, when I negotiate, it sort of depends on who I'm hiring for, but I often will, on hourly people, we can legally ask what they were making, and so I do. And then I ask, what do you want to make? And I get an answer. And oftentimes, if it's someone who is attracted to me, I'll say, I'll pay you that, and I'll even pay you a little more to start with. And here's the deal. If you're no good, I'll fire you. And but if you're good, you're worth it.
That's very different. They've told you what they're looking for. You gave it to them. That's not negotiation. Right. You gave them what they were asking for.
No, but I'm saying that I live in a different information environment. You're trying to get information that you can't just straight out ask, but you're also making a very negative judgment on someone who's sincerely doing their best to take care of themselves. And given the zeitgeist these days is, oh yeah, it turns out that a lot of people are really bad at negotiation, and maybe if you can just get your head around it for one day, you might actually get a great payoff. Maybe you should try it. Like, I don't blame someone for trying it.
Okay, the point is you said you can't, you're wrong. You can't, but I can. I can do whatever I want. You can do whatever you want. Maybe you don't want to hold it against them. I do. I put in the ad, here's the range. I very clearly said, here's where the number came from. You don't have as much experience. And we lay it all out. We tell them this is what we believe the number is. And I don't really want to negotiate it.
All right. Well, I mean, that's fine.
Listen, we can all hold anything against anybody we want. And this is where it makes it easy. We're going to tell them up front. It's not negotiable, so they don't have to go home and hear from their mother, father, cousin, oh, you should have asked for more money. No, we're going to tell them up front. We put the range in the ad, 45 to 55. You have very little experience, but we like you and we think you've got some skills. We're going to give you 52.
Okay.
Period.
Well, let me ask you, Jay, would you be willing to make a menu that breaks down all the ways you could get from 45 to 55 if you did this?
Sure.
If you could do that.
No problem.
Would you put that in an ad?
I don't know that I'd bothered. I would tell them in the interview that, listen, as soon as you get more skills and blah, I mean, she said at the interview, she put up her hands and go, I just want you to know I have very little HR experience. I mean, we're all on the same page. So it's not like we gave her the bottom of the scale. We came in and I left this part out. And she admitted, she goes, I thought that was a very good offer. But then someone told her, you should still ask for more.
Did it cost her the job to ask for more?
It could have. Absolutely could have. If I had 3 other great applicants that were thrilled, yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, I think it's up to you as the employer to make it clear. As you said, we're going to give you an offer. There's no negotiation. Take it or leave it. Great. Say that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Don't say that after she's come back and asked for more. Like, don't spring that on her. I would be pretty upset if an employer did that to me.
I'm saving everyone a lot of grief. I'm absolutely going to tell them beforehand. We'll explain to you what we're going to make the offer, and we just want you to know. It just saves everyone a lot of grief. So I'll for sure tell them beforehand. And then if they don't want to take it, okay, then. But I think telling people, oh, it never hurts to negotiate is not a good phrase. Sometimes it does hurt. Lauren, you said it to me. Everyone does that. No, they don't. Everyone doesn't do that.
I didn't mean literally everyone, Jay, but as Paul was saying, this is a time when the standard advice is whatever you get for the first offer, you should probably ask for a little bit more and see what happens.
I understand that, which is why I'm going to take everyone off the hook and just tell them up front, listen, I just want you to know we don't negotiate starting salaries.
Jackie, I'm curious. I heard what you said about you haven't done a lot of hiring recently, but do you have a gut sense of whether the law prohibiting owners from asking for a salary history is in fact helping women?
I have a couple of, groups of women friends in business, and we haven't seen that impact us as much as our connection to each other has helped. Not the bad advice of, no, go back and negotiate for more because you're getting screwed. Not that, but the standing up for yourself, the making sure that you advocate for yourself. I'm in a group, an online group of about 50,000 women marketers, and the lowballing and job scope creep and I think gender-based expectations that come through, I am appalled by on a regular basis. I mean, there's some horror stories on there, but I'm seeing improvements.
What's the answer for that, if not the salary law?
I don't think it's necessarily that we always have to go back and negotiate, because I'm with Jay, probably not a phrase I'm going to use very often. But I'll try it out for right now.
How come everyone that comes on the podcast feels like they're not initiated until they take a shot at me? Okay, you're in now.
Because we've always said, hey, this is the offer, kind of a take it or leave it thing. But we don't lowball. We are very fair. We are at the top of market rates because I want the best talent. And I have to balance the fact that I have local people and remote people. And it's a whole thing. But so I think it's communication. I think that if the whole goal is to help women, then what helps women is when we talk to each other and we help each other out and we don't look at each other as competition and we make sure that we are turning around and holding a hand out to the person behind us. That's how we improve our lot in life.
Keep in mind, if you tell someone we don't negotiate and you say, okay, we like to offer you the job for $51,000, they certainly can say, you know what, I'd love to work for you, but to be honest, I've gotten some other offers and I really need to make 53. That's not negotiation. They know that they might have just lost the job, but at least they can always throw out there, I need 53, and you could still rethink it if you chose to. So here's the point. If you had 4 different people that were great applicants and they all would have been thrilled at that number and the fourth one isn't, why would you hire the person who wants to why not hire the one that's, oh my God, that's great, I'll start Monday? Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, to Paul's point, they all 4 might be thrilled with that number, but they've been taught that you might as well ask.
Well, okay, Jay, sorry, tell me again, this was for an HR position?
An assistant HR assistant.
Does this person need to assert themselves in any way at any time during their job?
Not at this moment. She's very young and has no experience. And no, we're not going to set her free to start going out and dealing with sticky HR situations. It's mostly to do payroll, keep records, and as she matures and gets more experience with things, certainly she will. But at this point, she's not there yet.
I mean, if you were hiring a salesperson, you'd want them to come at you for more money.
Maybe a salesperson.
I mean, there's plenty of jobs where being assertive is a plus, and depending on how you do it. But the total lack of spine is a red flag for me in a lot of situations. I'd rather people who stand up for themselves.
Okay, you're making it black and white. If someone asks for money, they're assertive, and if they don't have a spine. That's not. There's a third category. They don't, and they have a spine. There are those people out there. Like, I've got 130 of them. I almost have never negotiated a starting salary, and I don't have a bunch of wusses working here. So,
all right, I bow to your greater experience.
Okay, accepted.
On that note, thank you for a lively conversation, Paul Downs, Jay Goltz, and Jackie Russo, and to our sponsor, The Great Game of Business, which helps businesses use an open book management system to build healthier companies. You can learn more at greatgame.com. Thanks, everybody. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at lauren@21hats.com. That's LOREN @21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.